Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to have fellowship with us today. I am excited to be here with each and every one of you. Today I have Dr. Shawn with me, and I'm excited to hear what he is going to say. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Well, fantastic.
Sorry I'm so low in the frame. I had to
Yeah, I'll
had to
fix you.
lean back a little bit. How is
Nope.
everybody? Hi Summer.
Everybody
Where are you
doing
from,
good?
Summer? Summer's in the chat. I wonder where is Summer from? I'm
I
always
see.
curious where people are listening.
Yeah, why don't everybody put in the chat where they're from? I see a lot of the regulars. Everybody I see in the chat is in the show almost every day, so this
It's
is great.
amazing. That's amazing the level of support that you have. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's good people. It's a wonderful family. While we're waiting for folks to respond, do you want to open in prayer?
Sure. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much that you've blessed us with so many things. And we know the topic we're tackling today is a really, really controversial one. And I pray that you'll give folks a sense of kind of being still uh, and knowing you are God, but being still and being able to receive the information. Um, what a critical thing our healthcare. I thank you that you've made us fearfully and wonderfully, and we've strayed so far. Many of us, not all of us, and there's many here that are super healthy and they've eaten all the right things and they do all the right things, and then there's others, myself included, who um, just is not good health and all of the problems that come with that, and so exposed to the healthcare system. I know that everybody at some point or another will be involved in the healthcare system, whether as a patient or an advocate or just someone standing by watching things happen, wondering why they happen that way. And Father, I do want to pray for all the physicians, even especially the ones that are going to be listening today. Um, it's going to be hard to hear these things, although they can shake their heads no and rebut it if they want, but they're all facts. And I thank you for giving us the resources to research and to confirm and to be sure that what we're saying is true. I thank you, Father, for the opportunity to depend fully and completely on you and how you provide each and every time. You never fail. You never fail us. I don't know any other entity or thing in my life that has never failed me. And I thank you so much that you never have. You're batting 1,000, and I can't thank you enough. I pray that you bless this audience that's taking the time to listen today, wherever they are in the world, that you would bless their life, help them to know you with clarity and depth, and that they would know you fully as best they can this side of the veil. And Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this venue that we have. Thank you for blessing Chris's channel and for giving him the talents and the skills to build it and to do it, and the dedication to do 2 shows a day. And for those that join every single time, what an amazing thing. We hear from the postmodern West Evangelical Church that a 25-minute sermon is too long and they only want to be in church a total of an hour. And then they want to go on and do the rest of the things they want to do. And that people can't sit for that long or people can't pay attention for that long. But this is proof that that's just simply not true. We do what we choose to do. And I thank you for those who have chosen today to be a part of this and to tap in and to stay connected. And I pray for Christopher. I thank you for blessing him all of these years. I thank you for protecting him, and I pray that you will protect him moving forward. And I pray for his children, that you would love and protect them. Um, I know that when we seek to serve you and we're in the process of doing your will in our lives, attacks will come. And I pray, Father, that you protect us. Help us to be correct in what we espouse. Help us to be well researched and well prepared, but also protect us from those entities that seek to come against us. For praising your name, you said we'd be persecuted. You said they'd come after us, and we take you at your word. We live and experience that every day. Heavenly Father, I bring all this to you in the matchless name of your son, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen, brother. Amen. I'm grateful that you're here to share your wisdom and your knowledge. And one day we need to do a show having you tell your story from beginning to end, as I think it would really fascinate folks and really show a true testament of how the Lord will use whoever He wants, and everything is at His will, not ours. So,
Amen. Well, I will be happy to do that. I think sooner rather than later. By the
yeah.
way, I was curious about where people that are listening are from, and if you're tapped into chat, I'll just start off. I'm originally from the state of Delaware. I'm in the Carolinas on the coast now. It's where I plan on next move I make will be to heaven from here, and I love it. Love living here. But I've been all around the world, and I'm always curious about where people make their living, where they raise their families, where they've experienced what they've experienced. I know there's a listener named Anna who I've become great friends with. She's so dear, and she lives in the UK, and it's cool to hear from her experiences in the UK. Right now, they're not very positive, either from the medical care, from law enforcement, from the anti-terrorism, from the government in general, and so that's partly what inspired this message today. This is not what you would typically hear. Now, on in my actual radio show, when I used to do that, God and Country, the Collision of Faith and Politics, I would talk about things like this all the time. Saskatchewan, Canada. Ugh, what a beautiful but hard place. Saskatchewan is utterly beautiful. It's so, so beautiful. But nature will kill you. Born in Brazil, but live in Alabama. Well, that's awesome. Alabama, I had considered at one point trying to get away from the hurricanes. Where I live, hurricanes are a big deal. And of course, Hurricane Florence really wiped out the area here. And hurricanes twice have taken everything that two of my dear friends have within 2 years. The last two
Wow.
years, they've lost everything twice. And so it got me to thinking, and I got to thinking about Huntsville, Alabama. It's a booming place, great economy, relatively conservative, but a really, really sort of cosmopolitan place. It's people would be shocked, Huntsville's beautiful. And I looked at it, and I looked at houses there. They were beautiful, and you get a lot more for your money there than you do where I live, unfortunately. But what I will say is, we'll hang here, closer to my children and grandchildren, and easier for them to get to us, easier for us to get to them. And Huntsville is far; it's real far. So,
Yeah.
but we live where we live, and we make choices, and there are risks in those choices. In Florida, they just mess up your hair. Alan says hurricanes don't mess with me. Here in Florida, they just mess up my hair. That's funny. I don't have much hair to mess up. But thank you to all of you who've chimed in with where you're from. It's really cool. I don't know why, but I really love that. In my previous show that I had, we did this book tour, Excellence Killed the Church, How Mediocrity is Destroying America. And that was my first book. And I did a book tour that was supposed to be just a few weeks and ended up being 5 months. And we went all over the country, speaking in all kinds of places and meeting incredible people. And one of the interesting things that I ran across, and I'll pivot to this because this is important, but the choices people make. I spoke at the Villages. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Villages or anybody has heard of the Villages, but Villages is an amazing, amazing, really city. I think there's 150,000 people living there now.
Wow.
And it's incredible. It's an incredible place. It's not what you would think. It's not, where old folks, it's the waiting room for heaven or something like that, people say, that have never been there. But I have to tell you, not at all. It's a vibrant, vibrant place. And I used to go speak there every Monday night. I used to speak to this huge crowd every Monday night. And it always, the conversations always seem to pivot to two things: the intersection of politics, faith, three things really: politics, faith, and medical care, health. And my friend Anna that I mentioned, she's from your show. She listens to your show. That's how I met her. And she came over to True Word Faith for Life and listens there sometimes when she can. But she tells me about the medical care system there in the UK, and it's woof, it's terrible. Yeah,
They have that. It's socialized medicine.
yeah.
So, they determine who is dispensable and who is important.
I'm going to talk about that today. Hey, mountains of South Carolina. We looked there too, potentially. Then one of your blues girl 65. Nice. If you're born in 65, we're born the same year, and I love the blues. Blues guitar particularly, but I really like Joe Bonamassa. Joe Bonamassa. He's one of my favorite guitar players ever. And then someone, Evelyn Turublartes, said, "Isn't it like a trailer place?" No, no, no. It's not at all. They're multi-million-dollar homes there. They are. It's the cleanest, most beautiful place in America, with some of the most beautiful homes. But the homes are very, very expensive. For a 1,500 square foot to 1,700 square foot home, you're going to spend between $500,000 and $700,000, depending on,
Wow.
But it is stunningly beautiful. No crime,
Yeah.
just about. It is in really central Florida.
Near Orlando, I
Um,
think, isn't it?
it's about 45 minutes or so from Orlando, I think. Maybe a
Yeah.
little more. Maybe, yeah, it's a little more than 45 minutes, but yeah, it's kind of in the center. So when they get hurricanes there, really there's not much flooding per se. There is some flooding, but more of what they get is the wind damaging their roofs. And they have this roof program there where, and I forget the number of years, I think it's just been reduced from every 20 to every 12 or 15 years, you have to replace your roof, whether it needs it or not, because insurers won't cover you. Oh, I love on Marcus King right now. Oh, my lands, Marcus King. Come on now, play it out. I love that. She's clearly Blues Girl 65 knows her blues. So that's fun. I love the blues, man. I tell you what, you know what else is funny? I love bluegrass. Blues and bluegrass music, I think, is really, really good. I like a lot of the old country. I like some of the new country. Love Lainey Wilson. My lands, I could listen to her all day long. But yeah, yep, yep, yep. Yeah, people will say, Evelyn says, please forgive me. I only went off of what I heard, but you see how that goes. I heard that a lot too. And when I was invited to come speak there, I thought, oh, lands. I'm talking about the villages. Oh, lands. What in the world am I going to do there?
Yeah.
And when I arrived for my first speaking engagement, there were almost 1,000 people in the room.
Wow.
Humongous facility and beautiful. And, I they had crowds as big as 3,880 people. And it was really, really something. But I fell in love with the community. We actually considered moving there. Um, we really heavily considered moving there because of the lifestyle. Wellness, was really a focus there. Activity, being involved in a lot of things. And I really loved it. But what really got me, there's over 3,400 clubs there you can join. 3,400 clubs. And I ride a adaptive recumbent trike because I'm disabled. And which actually, as we speak, over the next month will be modified even more because my grip strength has dropped substantially. Nothing not predicted. I mean, they knew that would happen because I have a spinal cord injury. And so the other day, on a nice day, I was riding and I couldn't get stopped. I was trying to squeeze the brake, and I was coming to a T intersection. I could not get stopped. I was on a downhill. So I had to
Dang.
take both hands. I have all my brake controls, all the controls for the trike are on the right side because my right side was my strongest.
Right.
Um, and so most of the damage was to my left side, but because of the spinal cord, it's moving steadily across my body. But I had to use both hands to get stopped in time and put my feet down like the Flintstones and try to get stopped, which is very dangerous. Then you get this thing called leg suck, where your legs go up underneath the trike and you snap your lower legs, and some have snapped their femurs. It's really dangerous to do that, but I felt like I had no choice. So they're retrofitting my trike, which is made in the Czech Republic, with these special brakes that require much less squeeze, much less strength to squeeze. So very blessed, and I'm so thankful for that. All that said to say, they have at the villages, you pay an activity fee, which I think is up to $186 a month. That's your activity fee. So I don't know if they call it an activity fee, but it's basically your HOA fee, which includes, you can, if you're a golfer, you can golf as much as you want on a bunch of beautiful championship golf courses. You can play tennis. It is considered the center of the universe when it comes to pickleball. There are so many beautiful pools and parks, recreation centers, gyms. It is really amazing. But the biggest thing is they have these things called multimodal trails. Multimodal trails. Yes, Evelyn, super expensive to live there. Christopher, you're right, super expensive.
Well,
It
it's
was
the
prohibited.
premier. It's the premier where people retire, doctors,
Yeah,
engineers, Air Force pilots, when they want to be around other like minded folks and don't want the riffraff around and they want to just
that's
relax
right.
and be around other like minded people that have a
You nailed it.
same, so it's designed for those, folks that were conservative through life, that prepared for retirement and had the stuff in advance. And that's where they go to, it's not like a waiting to go to heaven place, but it is, the
Yeah,
retirement premier community where that focuses on staying active, where age is just a number and not,
yep,
waiting to die. But this is where people have, they prep their entire life through 40 years of hard work and whatever their industry
that's
was
right.
to be able to relax like that. So it's typically not the thing where people just move there last minute because of the expense, but it is designed to accommodate those who have prepared their entire life for
Yeah.
retirement and they want that.
Well, you nailed it. You nailed it on the head. And the Villages is owned by a family. It has been owned by the founding family, and they're very involved in everything. It is such a beautiful place you cannot imagine.
It is.
Everything. It's so gorgeous. I loved going there, and I would love to live there. But there's two reasons why, three reasons why we didn't. One, because of what happened to me, we lost everything. There were after a year, we lost our insurance coverage, which included we lost, and I'm going to be talking about that today. Obamacare. The insurer that I had for health insurance, when my crash happened, the insurer I had for health insurance left Delaware because they said we cannot survive in we can't survive in this environment financially. We would go out of business, and so they left Delaware. So that meant I lost my insurance coverage, but I also lost my automobile coverage, which was a multi-million dollar policy, business auto policy, no claims. And but in Delaware, that's where all most of the insurance companies are domiciled because of their favorable treatment, both legally and tax wise. They canceled us too, which they're legally allowed to do. It wasn't my fault. The guy who was at fault got a prison sentence of 19 years. He served 5, and he killed his friend, and almost he did kill me, but I came back to life, and he destroyed me physically and really financially. So to explain, the reason why we didn't go is because everything that we had saved, every penny that we had made had to go to my care and to, I really thought that I was going to be able to come back from it. I was sure I would. And that's part of the brain injury is you don't know what you don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
suffice it to say, so we didn't have that. But then the other thing was really far from our children. And that's what a lot of people that go to the villages say, that that is their biggest challenge, because it's a lot of people from the North, Midwest, places
Yeah.
where it's really cold. As
My
you get older, you
parents,
get sick.
yeah, my parents considered moving there, but they, you know, uh, their children are here.
Yeah.
So
They're
that
so
was,
involved in their children and grandchildren. So,
yeah.
yeah, no, 100%. I could picture them fitting in there
Oh, big
amazingly.
time. Yeah, my
Oh
mom,
yeah,
she'd be
they would
holding a
run the
party every
place.
night.
Oh my gosh.
They would.
But
My mom would
she'd
be
be
the
the belle
queen
of
of
the
the place.
ball.
Yeah.
You bet. She'd be the belle of the ball, and your dad would be in a bunch of clubs. She'd be in a bunch of clubs. They'd have a blast. I know they would be so
Yeah.
busy. But the other thing that got us, yeah, that was the children being that far from our children was really prohibitive. But the other thing, um, and I think I think for a lot of people, if you've never lived in southern humidity,
Oh, yeah.
it's
It's
extraordinary.
brutal. It's brutal.
It is brutal. Georgia humidity is among the worst I've ever experienced in my life.
It is.
But I went to boot camp in Navy boot camp back when Navy boot camp was recruit training command Orlando. I went to boot camp July 13th,
Oh, boy.
1983.
Oh, boy.
July 13th, 1983. Three people in my, uh, not in my company, but in my group that were in boot camp at the same time. Three people died of heat
Heat
stroke
stroke.
while I was
Yeah.
there. Three
Yeah.
people, and it is so hot. Then I lived not far from Memphis, of course, Millington, um, and um,
Yeah.
and that was brutal too. That really, really was brutal. But nothing like Florida humidity is just when it's 97 degrees and 97% humidity, and the rain doesn't help it.
Yeah.
It's just prohibitive. So everything you do when it comes, you know, really late spring to mid fall, you got to do it early in the morning or in the evening. You just have to. And I felt like that I don't know that that would be great for us, but I said Blues Girl 65 knows. She's from Savannah, Georgia. She knows all about it.
Oh,
By the
the
way,
heat is. Oof.
Savannah is one of my favorite cities.
Isn't it
I
beautiful?
love Savannah. Oh, it's so gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
so pretty.
I've done a
Miss
lot of
Colleen and I
weddings
need to
there.
take a
It's
look. I
beautiful.
bet you have, man. I see your wedding profile, and you've done a lot of weddings everywhere. Whew.
But
People
Savannah
are
is
lucky to have your
beautiful.
skill.
Well,
It's a great
for
backdrop.
me, yeah, for me, it's the history is what I like the most.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for
It's
sure. The architecture is stunning.
yeah,
It's just stunning. Well, I guess we better get started here because I have a show to do on True Word Faith for Life today with Dr. Shawn at 3. It's a different topic than this, but I'm looking forward to doing it. I'm be speaking on it. I think a week ago or a couple weeks ago, I did part 1 of my series. Jesus said what? And
yeah,
it's on the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. So I'm at part
yeah,
4 there. So if anybody wants to listen to any of those, they can go over to my channel. While you're there, click on subscribe and hit the little bell and all the notifications. It won't kill you.
yeah,
And I'd love to have that. So today is a controversial topic. Christopher, this is controversial.
yeah. No, it
And
is.
it is. But we're going to tackle some tough questions. And really, these impact your life, your faith, and your future. And they impacted my life in a humongous way, even physically and financially. I mean, it's a big deal. But I have to say, I've mentioned many times how much I love the VA. The VA in Wilmington, North Carolina, has been so wonderful to me, and it's in the Fayetteville system. But there have been some problems, and they've all originated from the ideologies that I'm going to talk about today. And I'm praying under the new VA director, Doug Collins, who is a wonderful man. I know that he will massively change this under the Trump administration. So today's a highly controversial topic, and it's one that affects every single one of us. And that is the growing physician shortage in America. Why are there so few doctors available when we need them the most? Is it just the result of increasing demand? Maybe it seems like there aren't enough doctors because we need more doctors. There's more call for doctors. Is it that? Or is there a deeper systematic force at play here? So I want you to join me, sit back. We're going to uncover the truth behind the shortage. We're going to explore the hidden bottlenecks in medical education. Some of it is going to shock you. And we're going to examine the intense pressures on our young doctors. Pressures that really push many to their limits. A very high suicidal rate. The highest among white coat professions is veterinarians, believe it or not. My daughter is an accomplished veterinarian, and so I stay up on all that stuff. But I also have many friends really close friends who are physicians, some of which have been physicians for 30, 40 years. Some have been physicians for 10, 15 years. So we're going to look at how the policies of influential organizations, the structure of medical training, how does that work? And even really societal shifts. We're going to examine how all of that has contributed to this crisis. And most importantly, we're going to discuss what can be done to change it. So grab a seat and let's dive in, because understanding this really could save lives. Look, I get it. This is a controversial episode, and it's one which most people are unaware of. And that's the number of doctors. This is a controversial statement, so hang on to your hat. The number of doctors is intentionally kept low as compared to the need, as compared to available people that would be suitable for medical school training and deployment into the field. And they do this in order to keep physicians' income high. I get it. I 100% get it. It's so important. Alan, you state the VA is so useless. They get rotated out every 2 years and do nothing but run you into the system, and professional dietitian. For me, it wasn't that way, and it hasn't been that way at all. They've been wonderful. They have treated me, I'm at the VA between 1 and 3 times a week for treatment. They have been unbelievable to me, quite frankly. It's just unreal. So I can't speak to that, but I can speak knowing other veterans who have come to this area from other places who their VA was not the level of what mine is. I suspect big changes are coming in the next 4 years. So I want to give you an example of the statement that I made, an analogy. It's a true analogy. The number of doctors is kept intentionally low compared to the need in order to keep physicians' income high, supply and demand. And they know that works to keep them in such high demand because that drives income. First, I want to say I'm great friends with many doctors, and most of them have helped me with this research. As you know, I'm a bit of a researcher, so I dig deep and I get resources that are really deep in this system, so that I can get the truth. And because I want to represent the truth, I want to honor God by representing the truth, little t and big T. And so I want you to picture the South African diamond business. Now, I want you to know, I can't say who it is because obviously as running executive protection team back in the day, we protected people that own diamond mines, people that own some of the largest jewelry businesses in the world and jewelry supply businesses in the world. So in that process, I protected people who own mountains of diamonds that are behind multiple incredible fences and gates and electrified and moats, believe it or not, guarded, armed guards all the time, advanced surveillance system, and the people that work in the mines are subject to non-disclosure agreements as to what goes on in there. A lot of it, just a lot of it, and they're searched every day. They go through these special monitors, which they can see if they've got any diamonds hidden in them. You wouldn't know if you saw a diamond unless you were in the jewelry business until it's been refined. Once it just looks like coal, basically initially. Most of it does, unless it's been subject to water running over it. But for the most part, they don't really. They just look like rocks. But mountains of them. I literally stood and looked at mountains and mountains of diamonds. And that was one place of many. Diamonds are ubiquitous. And so the owner who I was protecting said, "Have you ever seen such a thing?" And I said, "No, I have not." And he said, I'm going to remind you of your NDA. So I can't, the NDA only specifically said I couldn't name that business, but which I won't. But the crazy thing is, he said to me, "These are mountains of diamonds." And I said, "They are. I didn't realize there were this many of them." And he said, "The mountain is full of them." And they own mountain after mountain after mountain of them. And he said, "But you know why we have the gates?" I said, "Yeah. I mean, people would come in and steal them. They'd walk out with them, their pockets full of them." He said, "No, not that at all." He says it's so that no one can come in and photograph how many diamonds there actually are, because if they did, we wouldn't make any money. So, that's the analogy I want you to think of. So it keeps diamond prices higher than they need to be. The medical care, as far as doctors and the shortage, that contributes to the cost that you pay. There's a lot more to that, and I'm going to get into that. So it's also a fact that doctors' incomes are reduced by professional associations. You ever see that, you'll see a practice, they'll usually have a name. It'll be a bunch of different physicians that came into this professional association. They signed in and they share income and, all of the things. They have bonuses based on this and that, and they have goals they have to meet. They have a certain amount of investment they have to make, and all that. It's a little bit of a complicated thing. So, but also the fact that doctors' incomes are also reduced by negotiations and agreements with huge insurance organizations called medical care systems. So there are two primary medical care systems where I live. One of them good, one of them not so good. But on the other side, there are some really great doctors, and the one that's not so good, they're just in a system that doesn't allow them to really prevail. HMOs, health management organizations, and PPOs, preferred physician, preferred provider organizations, etc. You've heard all the terms, I'm sure. So the claim that the American Medical Association, or AMA, I'm going to say AMA from here on out, actively limited medical school admissions and hiring at hospitals to reduce the number of available doctors to maintain high incomes for physicians and the profession in general. It's a contentious topic, but I'm not afraid of this topic. I've done about a year and a half of research on it at a very deep level. I've done confidential interviews with several medical professionals from all levels of medical care, including world-renowned specialists. And so I'm going to give you an overview of the issue: medical school admissions and physicians' workforce. There's a correlation there. Medical school capacity. Historically, the AMA, along with other organizations, they've been involved in discussions about physician supply. That's kind of a big thing for them. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't know this until I started my research, until I had a conversation with one of my providers, and then I had another conversation with another one of my providers, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, where they told me this. I was shocked. I had no idea. And much of what you're going to learn today is exactly that. It's stunning. But in 1910, there's this report called the Flexner Report, and it was supported by the AMA, American Medical Association. So it led to the closure of many medical schools. Now, they say that they closed the medical schools because they didn't meet quality standards. They had other reasons that they would cite, but what happened is this reduced the number of graduating physicians. Now, the AMA led to the closure. And then when I say it was many medical schools, it was many. Now, the quality standards that they say they didn't meet were the standards the AMA came up with. Not, good physical care, good medical care, none of those things, not great results, low infection rates, low, what's it called? There's a term for when you catch a disease from being in the hospital, infections and all that. I can't remember the name. I know it like the back of my hand, but brain injury. So in more recent decades, due to public pressure, the AMA, they've publicly advocated for slightly increasing medical school enrollments and expanding residency positions to address the physician shortages, which are huge in every place where we are now. Back during the pandemic, that was a big deal because all of a sudden you needed all hands on deck, and there were fewer hands than people realized, and it scared the public. It drove the public to start looking at licensed practical nurses, nurse practitioner, physician's assistant, PAs. That's a big deal now. I have PAs, and I'm a nurse practitioner provides my primary care, and I'm very happy with it. But what the AMA, what they have been pushing is they'll say underserved areas. Pushing to fulfill these physician shortages in underserved areas, and but there's a hook to it. There's a hook. There's always a catch. I should say a catch. There's a catch to their advocacy for slightly increasing. And when I say slightly, it's infinitesimal, statistically insignificant, but slightly increasing medical school enrollments. Again, they control it. And the residency positions available, there are so many catches and hooks and ties, contingents upon this and contingent upon that. You'll be amazed. I mean, it's just stunning and it's disgusting. So let's talk about residency. I used the word resident. The number of residency positions is largely controlled by funding from the federal government. Now for nothing, you may pick up on some problems here. The funding comes from the federal government through Medicare graduate medical education, which is GMEs. They have to take, this is, their continuing education. And so as part of the GME, the graduate medical education, there's funding that comes through them, but there's so many ties to that group, so many woke and DEI ties to that group. It's extraordinary. It's an ultra left organization. So whereas the AMA has called for increasing funding to expand residency slots within a particular, giving particular attention to DEI recruiting, there are critics such as RFK Jr. who have vigorously argued that the system creates bottlenecks in training new doctors. Interesting. There are bottlenecks. Okay, we're going to ever so slightly increase the number of people we allow into medical school. We don't not have doctors because there aren't enough people that are smart enough. There aren't enough people who are, they have what it takes emotionally, and their attention to detail is high, and that they couldn't get through the education successfully. That's not where the first bottleneck is. The first bottleneck, Blues Girl 65 named it. It's control. And the AMA has a tremendous squeeze on that in general, but they also have a squeeze on hospital hiring practices. So I didn't know this, but hospital hiring is influenced more by market demand, hospital budgets, and geographic needs. Um, but who sets those? Who decides those? This is the AMA. These are decided by the AMA. These are determined and espoused by the AMA. Hospitals prioritize, this is what they say, prioritize hiring based on local and regional demand for specific specialities. But with the advent and expansion of DEI factors in recruiting, hiring of doctors, medical care, professional problems, medical care professionals and problems arose. Human farming, Quinn got it. It's human farming. So here's the thing. So they said, yeah, we're going to help you, but we're going to really pick what areas, the local and regional areas, and we're going to pick the specialities that we say are in high demand. But we're going to do this with a first focus on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, in recruiting and in the hiring of doctors and medical care professionals. And this is where the problems arose. You would think that competency would be number one. Can you do the job? Is your intellect high enough that you could do this job? I hate to say it, the answer is no. That's not what they were looking for. That wasn't first on their list. You're going to see more with these plane crashes. You're going to see more that the air traffic controller, which is one of the most stressful jobs you can have, undoubtedly, you're going to see that the prior administration, their focus was on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That was first. And they would not accept over 1,000 highly qualified applicants to the air traffic control FAA because of their color. They were white, and that wasn't what they were looking for. So they got sent packing. And that's the same way, shockingly, as it is with several airlines. It's insane. Well, okay, we're flying in planes. The DEI was the first thing you look for, and then we're going to doctors and medical professionals, and then that's the first thing the AMA is looking for. You got to be kidding me! It's the same thing that happened with LA. DEI was and is still the number one factor in hiring across the board. Government, career positions in governance, the fire departments, the police departments, the mayor's staff. It's just all this. No, like I'm saying, I don't care what you look like. It doesn't matter to me. You got to be great at the job. If we're depending on you protecting the public, which I was a police officer, and I can tell you that, it's an illusion that you think you're being protected by the police. It's not because the police they don't want to protect you, that they can't. They're not empowered to protect you. And there are not enough of them. And, society's starting to realize, hey, I can pretty much do whatever I want. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get caught. I'm pretty sure that in these woke places, I'm not going to go to jail. And in fact, I may sue. In fact, I will sue, and I'm going to get money. Easy peasy. Well, hospitals, unfortunately, this is the big deal. This is a really, really big deal. And it's getting worse. So the AMA, they will say, look, we don't directly control hiring decisions, but we do advocate for policies impacting physician workforce distribution, such as DEI, and forcing prospective doctors to embrace and enforce DEI policies and woke ideology over practical and effective medicine. Now, they're proud. They are proud that this is their thing, they're doubling down even. And I'm going to talk about the AMA's role as it relates to the pandemic and the jab, and it's going to really tick you off. It ticked me off. I could see it happening, but then I confirmed it, and then double confirmed it, and then triple confirmed it, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is not good. So critics argue that severely restrictive limitations on residency positions and medical school enrollment as a de facto cap, if you will, on the number of practicing physicians in the market treating patients, that I contend that it indirectly contributes to higher physician salaries. Now, they say that's not it at all. That's not why we do it. Many who've studied the data believe the AMA and other organizations benefit from protecting physicians' income by maintaining a limited supply of doctors. Now, what do I mean there? So, first of all, let me say there are some great doctors out there. There are many, many great doctors and medical care professionals just really doing the yeoman's work. It's incredible. But there are also many that are taking advantage of the system, working and gaming the system. And then most of them are victims of the system. You say, wait a second, a doctor's not a victim. Well, you'd be shocked to know, like if a doctor tried to be in private practice, which I have several friends who are still toiling away in private practice. Meanwhile, their patients are being guided away by their insurance companies to these organizations, these professional associations, these medical care systems, these healthcare systems. They're being shunned away by the insurance company. There's an incestuous relationship between the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, and these systems. So that's important for you to know. Put that right there. So they say if there were to be an indirect benefit of keeping physician income high, I have to tell you, they say, hey, that's not a bad side effect because, they need to make a lot of money so that it will attract more people. And quite frankly, it's such an important vocation, career. It's so needed by society that they should make that money. I 100% agree that, look, if you're in charge of life or death, you need to be paid well. I mean, this is ridiculous that I have a friend whose his net income after all the expenses that he pays running his practice, he's a 1 doctor, 2 nurse, 2 admin people, one of whose job is to chase insurance companies for money. So that's how small his practice is. And his net income is $41,000 a year. He works 85 to 90 hours a week. He has to see a bazillion patients in order to make enough money. He has to float massive loans just to pay his people's salary. And the lease payments on the equipment that he keeps in-house because he wants to have a lot of labs and diagnostic equipment available right then. And that's the benefit to the patient. It doesn't benefit him because he's floating these massive lease payments. You see this equipment in there. He has one machine that's over $1 million. Now, they say, well, you can lease it for the low price of. By the time he gets the lease paid off, guess what? By the time he's a year into the lease, that equipment is already obsolete. And, you need this new fancy pants thing. So, now he told me this. It cost him a total of $326,000 when you factor in the interest to pay he's been a doctor for over 20 years, to pay off his loans, his school loans. He's been a doctor for 22 years. That's insane. It's really, really insane. So there's some counter arguments. So supporters, because I don't want to just give you one side, that wouldn't be fair. Supporters of the current system, the current healthcare system, the current AMA-driven healthcare system, those who are actually in the system and those that actually run the system, they argue, and this is the fox in the henhouse here, they argue that the limitations are based on practical factors such as funding, which conveniently is predominantly paid by pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies, which are incestually related. Then they say quality of training and ensuring adequate resources for medical education rather than intentionally restricting supply. This is what they say. This is why we're doing this, because there's just not enough room. There's not enough space to educate all these doctors. There's not enough experienced doctors to train these new doctors or prospective doctors. Now, workforce studies, they often point to specific shortages in rural areas, and there are shortages with specific specialties that are in critical need. I mean, there's no doubt about it. OBGYN, I have a friend of mine that is an OBGYN, has been an OBGYN for years, and they have their insurance payment per year is $110,000. Has never had a claim. $110,000. Guess who controls a lot of that? The AMA. You're right. So the thing is the issue, they suggest that the AMA suggests this issue isn't purely about numbers, but it's also distribution. You might ask, who is in charge of workforce distribution? In large part, the AMA, the American Medical Association. So is it true? Is this true? Well, it is true that structural factors, including residency caps and limited medical school slots, all set by the AMA, affect the supply of physicians. But now they'll say, attributing this entirely to a deliberate effort by the AMA to limit supply for financial gain to a complex issue to quantify, they say that's not fair. Unfair. Factors such as federal funding, healthcare system inefficiencies, which we can all argue this is an inefficient system. It's really, really counterintuitive. And regional disparities. Now, what do I mean by regional disparities? A doctor in a real country area, like way out, maybe in the hollers of West Virginia or Kentucky, they will make considerably less money than, just on balance, than their counterparts who live in cities. You say, well, the cost of living is much lower. It is to a degree much lower, but this physician's expenses remain the same. That physician that's in the country of West Virginia, the hollers of West Virginia, that physician still has those massive medical bills, but is making a ton less money, substantially less money, in order to pay back these loans and these expenses. The lease payments are for the equipment still high. They're the same. They don't give you a break because you're out in the country. So I want to cover funding really quickly. So medical schools in the United States receive funding from a variety of sources. That's not in dispute. Each contributing to the financial support of medical education, research, and clinical services. Now, here's a breakdown of primary funding sources and their approximate contribution. I'm not going to give the number, but suffice to say, they say the biggest one is federal government research grants. Now, I want to explain something to you about federal government research grants as it relates to medical schools. You study what they want you to study. Amazingly, cancer is not top of the list. Heart disease is not top of the list. It's always fringe things, not always, but most of the time, fringe things that are policy oriented or ideology oriented, less than need. And so what it ends up being is a money laundering scheme. Not totally. I don't want to be unfair. Some of the research grants, they're funding really important stuff. But guess what? Primarily, these grants come through the National Institute of Health, the NIH. I want you to look up whose wife is a big time person at the National Institute of Health and who gave permission back during the pandemic for a lot of the things he did. You can guess. So back in 1965, which was the year of my birth, and apparently Blues Girl 65, about 40% of total medical school revenue was from federal research funding. But here's the problem. By 1999, this decreased to approximately 19%. So from 40% total medical school revenue was from back in 65, the year of my birth, came from federal research funding. But in 1999, this decreased to approximately 19%, under 20%. It's insane. That's an insane reduction, right? You're like, whoa, we should be rolling in the dough. We say, no. Slow down, slam dancer. Apples and aardvarks. They will say, mainly due to the growth of clinical income and the impact of pharmaceutical and insurance companies' fundings. No, wait, it's not them that said it. It's me that said it. It's also RFK Jr. that said it. I wonder why they're so after him. So you might think, okay, if the federal government, i.e., the taxpayer, you and me, if we're paying for this, shouldn't we have a say? Shouldn't we have a say? And if we're paying for it, now, when we say that the number decreased from 40% in 1965 to 1999, 19%, shouldn't that be a smaller number? Well, no, it's not. It's an egregiously, exponentially higher number. But all of the costs, when the federal government doles out this federal tuition aid, these colleges all raise their tuition and their room and board. They raise it over the pace of inflation. Why? Because they're getting federal money. So they're going to continue to raise it, and the cost to the individual student is not going to go down. It's going to go up. Greed? Maybe. So when we talk about clinical income, so they make income from the federal government off of research and different things that they do. But here's the other thing, and I know this is true in veterinary schools. I know it for a fact, but I also know that of the 16 doctors that I know very well, 5 of which I'm good friends with, of all of them, they all tell me the same thing. When I went to medical school, you wouldn't believe the influence of big pharma and insurance companies. And I don't know if you know this, but Aetna owns CVS, or CVS owns Aetna. You decide. Now, did you know that one of the biggest prescribers, pharmacies, or not prescribers, but doing the deliverables, delivering the drugs that the physicians prescribe, is owned by Aetna, or Aetna is owned by CVS. They haven't been real clear on what that case is. You see a problem there. Anybody see a problem? Anybody? I know RFK does. RFK Jr. did. He says, hey, that'd be a problem. Maybe somebody should look into this. Then there's this thing called graduate medical education, GME, and federal funding for GME includes both mandatory, which would be Medicare and the federal Medicaid match, and then discretionary appropriation, which is Health Resources and Services Administration, the Veterans Health Administration, VA, Department of Defense, all of which prior to January 20th, 2025, what happened on January 20th, 2025? January 20th in the United States, January 20th, 2025. What happened on January 20th, 2025. Oh, yeah. Grown-ups were back in the White House. Prior to this, all of those things were DEI driven and woke influenced. I know. Hard to believe, but it's true. Now look at all the hubbub raised when they put a pause on all that and said, look, you're going to shut all these divisions down. We're going to shut all the funding down to anything that's DEI or woke. We're shutting it down. Our job is to provide excellent health care, right? So in the VA, I know for a fact that has been influenced by DEI. I know it for a fact. I live it. I live it. I'll tell you about a personal experience here in just a few minutes. But prior to 2025, January 20th, 2025, they were all DEI and woke influenced. That's how they measured things. So then there's state governments, right? You probably didn't know, state governments contribute through direct appropriation to public medical schools and support for GMEs, which are those, what I just talked about, via the Medicaid programs. Now, let me say, if a state, some states do this, not all states, but if a state does not have a medical school in the state, they will provide grants for up to half of the total tuition for you to, for a resident from that state that qualifies to go to another state that does have a medical school and receive their medical school education. That's something that exists. That does happen. I know this for a fact. So then there's tuitions and fees. Tuitions and fees. So revenue from student tuition and fees, it does constitute a significant portion of medical school funding. It's an enormous amount of money. Now they get money from so many other places. Why does the tuition have to be that high? Why is the tuition still that high? When big pharma and big insurance, that incestuous relationship that none of us love, let me just say, I take, 40 some pills a day, ostensibly to keep me alive. I take a ton of pills a day, a ton. You wouldn't believe what all of them do or are supposed to do. I believe some of them are actually helping to save my life, helping me to be in this chair and helping me to do the True Word Faith for Life channel and those things that I do. I wrote this book, True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. I'm able to do that because, I'm still alive and I've received incredible medical care. Really, really incredible. Some of it not so much, but in the VA, for the most part, incredible. Really incredible. And I believe that the people that take care of me on my medical team in the VA that I go to, I believe they care about me. I really do. I believe I matter to them. And they treat me as such. But I also know all of them have massive, massive school loans. Every single one I talk to. It's so over their head. It's so oppressive. And they're like, I'm never going to get to pay this off. I pay so much money in, and then I've got my AMA fees and I've got my this fee and that. Oh, what AMA fee? Is that like your union dues? They're like, you should see how much they are. A lot of money, humongous money. The thing is federal funding from other sources. What do? They take the money, these medical schools, and they raise tuition rates. They say that they do this to offset reductions in other funding streams, but other funding streams, many of them aren't even disclosed. They don't disclose them. So the average cost of medical school, you might be surprised to know, from medical school to graduating the internship and residency program, approaches between $250,000 and $350,000, depending on what school you attend. Tuition. That's what your loans are, between $250,000 and $350,000. Yeah, that's a lot. And that is a lot to have over your head every single day. Yeah, summer. I have a son in medical school. We are helping as much as possible, but he still had to get loans. Amen. I mean, it is insane. It's insane. The amount of money that's spent on it is insane. Unbelievable. We have this genius daughter who I didn't contribute at all to her medical school or college at all. She got loans, and it's still $235,000. She's a veterinarian. It's incredible. It is so overwhelmingly oppressive. You can imagine what that does to the mind of a person who every day is in a horribly um, just stressful job, but then they're also they've got this massive stress over their head. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So another area of income is clinical services. Now, income generated from faculty clinical practice. So that says, okay, we're a medical school, but we're also a teaching hospital. You ever hear this term, teaching hospital? Well, it's a money exchange. It's a money exchange. You come in, we're going to have medical students, obviously supervised by doctors who are their professors, and they're highly supervised, but you still pay for that. It's not free. The advent of federal programs like Medicare in the mid 19, I guess it would be right around, well, Blues Girls 65, right around when we were born, 1965, the 1960s, led to increases in faculty practice earnings, which are often used to support medical school academic programs. These earnings went up. So if you were faculty and you were in practice, all of a sudden, not only were you getting insane amounts of money to teach, but now you're also generating revenue, which comes to you. There are some who have tried to declare that as a tax-exempt income because it's education. I'm giving education. This cost of giving education. So then another one is philanthropy and endowments. Now, this is a big deal. Donations from individuals, foundations, and corporations. The pharmaceutical companies are corporations. Just saying. Provide additional financial support. These funds are often designated for scholarships, a very small amount of it, research, really a sickeningly small amount of money is dedicated to scholarships, research, again, for things that they want to research, not things that need to be researched necessarily. Now, again, teaching hospitals, some of them are researching critical things, really critical things. But what ends up happening is they hire people to write grants, get the grants, and then make sure that they continue to, on paper, qualify for the grants. So then there's research, just general research for which they're paid through a variety of sources, infrastructure, and other specific initiatives. So the AMA, this is just a fact, they exert extreme, tremendous pressure on physicians. How do I know this? Because I know them. To donate to not just their medical schools, but medical schools in general. But hold on, slow down, slam dancer. Only the ones that promote the AMA agenda. I am telling you, this number is larger than you can imagine. Now, the last one I think is private sector, but this includes pharmaceutical and insurance companies. Now, exact percentages, they're not well documented, but to me, and maybe to you, it seems like that should be against the law to hide. What do you think? It seems like it ought to be against the law to hide private sector contributions through research grants, sponsorships, and partnerships. That should be illegal to be allowed to keep that secret. What? What? That's another thing RFK is, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is exposing. the incestuous relationship here. They don't have to disclose how much money they get from pharmaceutical and insurance companies. And this stance is supported by the AMA. Now, the AMA says, no, this is generally a much smaller portion compared to other sources. This claim is spurious at best. The reliance on these funding sources, these medical schools and medical organizations, it can vary. I mean, it depends on the school, depends on the institution. Factors such as public versus private status, research focus, and regional economic conditions. So I think it's inarguable that we need excellent doctors. And I have many friends who are excellent doctors. And some of those many friends who are excellent doctors are my excellent doctors. Look, this is a difficult and often exasperating path for them. What they go through it's often hellish. I know. You're probably looking, Dr. Shawn, they're rich. No, most of them are not rich. You look at their debt to income, extraordinary. Now, I will grant you, if you've been at it a long while and you didn't accumulate a lot of debt because maybe you had wealthy parents or even parents that said, hey, we're gonna, and I know one that did this. We're gonna mortgage our house. They had their home paid off to pay for your medical school, and then you could just pay us back. Those parents were dead a long time before they ever got that money back. And they lived. Why? Because turned out the amount of money that he made was not that much. They were dead. He ended up getting the house. Guess what? Had a huge second mortgage on it they could barely pay. He had to sell the family home because he didn't have the money to pay for it. You know how many doctors are addicted to drugs? The stress that is involved, the temptations that are involved, all of these things. Now, I don't, there was a big push to call doctors and nurses and medical profession heroes during the pandemic. I never saw as many TikTok videos of nurses and doctors dancing in my life. I never saw it. I mean, I'm being told the bodies are piling up. I'm being told people are in the hallway on ventilators and they're doing TikTok videos. I know some nurses, some since they were born, that the pandemic was brutal for them. Their hours were much longer, but they made unbelievable money. Unbelievable money. I had no idea. And there's this thing called traveling nurse. There's a nursing shortage where I live that is being filled. Little holes in the dike are being plugged by nurses from other places. And then, well, why is there a nursing shortage here? Because the nurses from here learned, hey, I can drive 2 hours in another direction and work at a hospital and make 3 times what I would make at home. Gee, I think I'm going to do that. Why wouldn't I do that? Oh, and by the way, the hospital organization or the company pays for my rent. Oh, and by the way, they pay for my mileage. Oh, and by the way, I get a per diem for my food. And I still make unbelievable money. Why is that still happening? But I understand, my friends who have gone through the schooling and the internship process. I mean, these are people saving lives, literally saving lives. The pressure on them is insane. But when you hear about the internship program in the United States, you're going to just shake your head, because most people have no idea what doctors go through to become doctors. So my point in that is saying, hey, there are some people doing great work, but when, to me, the hero word, I served among heroes. I don't know that I would say that people who are making exponentially more money working in the pandemic are heroes. And I'll explain why in a moment. That in itself is a controversial thing. I don't like to devalue the word hero. I go visit a bunch of my friends that are heroes in Arlington, Virginia. They didn't get paid much money, and they gave their life. I have lots of buddies who don't have legs or don't have arms or are blind, and they didn't get lots of money.
Yeah. Be careful with saying anything about that shot thing. Don't go down
Yeah, I was
that
trying to
road.
say the jab. I was trying to say
Yeah.
the
There
jab,
you
but
go.
yeah.
Stay away from the V word, please.
So that in and of itself is a thing. Can you imagine? Why? Why is that still like that? Why are certain organizations trying to put businesses out of business and ministries out of business for words that they say? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So medical internships, they are typically the first year of residency, let's say after medical school. They're rigorous. It's so demanding you can't imagine. Interns are responsible for significant clinical duties. They're expected to demonstrate professionalism, competence, and commitment while often working hours of up to 100 hours per week. One of my buddies worked regularly 120 hours a week. No wonder they get addicted to drugs in a massive, massive amount. Uppers and all kinds of drugs. They like Ritalin and different types of drugs. There's all kinds of different drugs that they take because they have to stay awake. They have to stay sharp. It's why they drink so many coffees and so many Red Bulls and all these things. It's because they have to stay awake. So typical hours and workload, now it's between 80 and 100 hours per week. Now, technically, that's limited by the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, which is the ACGME. They have regulations. So technically, they're restricted in that, but they find ways around that. So if you're off for just an hour, then your clock begins again. If you're technically off the clock for an hour, the clock begins again. So they're going to get their 100 hours or more. So this was instituted in 2003. And prior to that, interns regularly worked over 100 hours per week. And shifts could range from 12 to 28 consecutive hours. Yes, in charge of human life. And they're working 12 to 28-hour tours. Some specialties required overnight or on-call shifts every few days. Just a minimum of 1 day off in 7 is mandated. 1 day off in 7, averaged over 4 weeks. How do they get around that? There's always tricks to get around it. Interns manage multiple patients at once. They often oversee between 10 and 20 patients during their shifts, depending on their specialty and the hospital. And they have some clinical expectations, direct patient care. They're responsible. Now, this is what they say. This is not actually true, because in a hospital setting, usually nurses do this. You go through a series of what brings you here today. This person is not even a nurse or has nothing to do with nursing. They're just checking you in. What brings you here today? And then you tell them. And then you finally get called back. Let's say you go through the emergency room, and then another person comes in, and they're take down your history. They do your vitals and all this stuff, and then the doctor at some point will come in and speak to you. But they've pushed a lot of that off to nurse practitioners, licensed practical nurses, RNs, pushing it kind of downstream, if you will. So they perform physical exams, they formulate different diagnoses, they write orders for medications or scripts. They order diagnostic tests and treatments under the supervision of the attending physician or senior residents. They do specialties. Depending on the specialty, an intern could be expected to do basic medical procedures. Now, they state this, the MA states, this is not true. I've been in the hospital more than you can imagine, and I can tell you, I've never had a doctor draw blood. I've never had a doctor place an IV line. I've had a doctor suture my wounds. Yes, I have had that. Conducting lumbar punctures. Yes, I have had doctors do that. But the rest of it, I've never had a doctor do. And what you probably don't know is interns have to maintain meticulous records, daily progress notes, discharge summaries, and treatment plans, sort of a pass down. They have to do this, and it has to be done a certain way. It's tough. Interns also, they do rounds. They participate in daily rounds where they go from patient to patient to patient. The attending physician is there, like the supervising physician, attending physician is there, and they explain. They say, okay, this is what's going on. This is the plan I came up with. And then that doctor intervenes and says, let's look for this, or why'd you ask for that again? And then they do a different thing. Now, there are educational requirements as you go, believe it or not, infused into these 80 to 100 hour work weeks. They have to do conferences. They have to do didactics. Interns are required to attend scheduled educational sessions, which include lectures, workshops, and case presentation. They have to do this. They have to do it. So time for study and board exam preparation, it's limited. How are you fitting all that in? How are you going to work an 80-hour, even 80-hour work week? And you're going to do all that stuff. How do you fit it in? It's an expectation. How do you fit it in? Interns, they don't get more hours in the day than we do. And they get evaluated. They get peer evaluation. They get supervisory evaluations to assess their clinical performance, communication skills, and professionalism. And look, I'm for all that. I'm for all that. I think all that is good. Then there's emotional and physical demands. I've talked about it. Sleep deprivation. Can you imagine the sleep deprivation? This is why used to be they would pop these pills like truck drivers used to do. You can't drink a bunch of coffee while you're driving a truck because you got to go to the bathroom a lot. So the long haul truck drivers would take these caffeine pills. Now the energy drinks are playing a role because it's more caffeine in a much smaller amount of liquid. That's how it came about. So that's why these things happen, because you got to be sharp. So they end up having, super long shifts or overnight calls. Fatigue is huge. Mental acuity, huge impact. All of it impacts mental and physical health. No one likes to mention it. But it's also the physical health of the patient that is impacted. Quality and safety of medical care is impacted. It's insane. Then the emotional stress. Let's not villainize doctors completely, and we have to have a caveat here. The emotional stress that doctors go through, they deal with critically ill patients. They deal with death. High pressure situations, incredibly high pressure situations. They have to develop emotional resilience and clarity of mind. You say, well, that doctor's just so cold. Well, maybe that doctor had to become cold. I don't know why that doctor ever went in the profession, just like they say about veterinarians. Well, you're just in it for the money. Oh, really? Because let me show you the formula. It doesn't work out. You cannot replace good old-fashioned sleep. You can't. As a guy who has terrible sleep situation, you cannot replace good old-fashioned sleep. Then when you transition to residency, the internship year is followed by additional years of residency, first year, second year, third year. And when the workload, you thought it was busy when you were an intern. Oh, the workload and responsibilities, they increase. So what is required to complete internship, to retire, to progress to what they call IGY 2? Second year resident. And you have to obtain a medical license. most U.S. states. I didn't. There are a couple that it's not required, which I thought was weird. I don't remember those off the top of my head. And then you have to pursue board certification in your chosen specialty. But there are also licensing and certification requirements. You got to pass the United States Medical Licensing Examination, which is the USMLE. It is step 3 or equivalent exam, super hard. Which you want it to be difficult because, this is important stuff, life and death stuff. They have to do this during their residency years in order to become fully licensed physicians. Now, some hospitals, they may require interns to complete certifications such as advanced cardiovascular life support, ACLS, or BLS, basic life support. I don't know that I have a problem with that. I think knowing how to do that's probably integral to, especially if you're in an emergency physician. But honestly, if you're a physician up on the floors above the emergency department, the trauma center part of it, you had better be able to do all that because people have heart attacks while under care. People need basic life support while under care. Stuff happens. Look, I get it. Medical internships are very essential. But they're demanding. It's an essential but demanding phase of physician training. I'm just saying to you, I would think in the modern age, we could think of a better way. How about this? How about the AMA allow more qualified applicants to get into medical school? And how about, because guess what happens, by the way? You may go through medical school and you may do great. Great. Guess what happens? Uh-oh. I can't get into a hospital. There's no slot. So what happens? This person who has gone to medical school, graduated, did very well, and then all of a sudden, they can't find a job. Hi, welcome to Starbucks. I'm Stacy. What do you have? What's your name? Okay. Yeah. Because they got all these loans. They have all these expectations. Their friends and family are looking at them going, why are you slinging coffee? Did you just finish medical school? Because I thought the next thing is you being a doctor. No, I can't get into a hospital. Imagine if we increase the number of slots in medical school and we increase the number of slots for available hospital employment, because we constantly hear there aren't enough doctors. My friends, mountains of diamonds exist, not just in South Africa, but other countries where they have ubiquitous number of diamonds. Why do they do it? They do it to keep the income high. But did you know over the past 12 years, the American Medical Association, they have actively, intentionally insinuated themselves, and by proxy, its members, into various leftist, national political issues. They have a commitment to shaping healthcare policy in the United States, advocating for socialist medical care ideologies. I don't know why, because in countries where they have socialist Medicare ideologies, a doctor's pay is not terribly higher than other professions. Why? Because government's paying. They make the same amount. Why am I going to kill myself? I'm making the same as the bricklayer, which the bricklayer's job is important. The plumber's job is important. But I'm making the same as them. I got life and death in my hands? I don't think so. And they still have socialist medical care ideologies and systems. They have tremendous waiting lists. The healthcare in the UK, terrible. Healthcare in Canada, terrible. Despite these socialist systems failing everywhere they've been tried, the AMA goes, yeah, I think that would be good. We can do it better. Here's a few things that they worked on. Then I got to finish because I got True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn show. I'm excited to do it. It's at 3:00, shortly following this, 3 Eastern Standard Time. Blessed are they that mourn. Jesus says what? It's going to be part 4 in the series. Come over and listen if you're not doing anything. So healthcare reform and the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. Healthcare in the United States is 1/6 of the U.S. economy. Did you know that? Healthcare, 1/6 of the United States economy. The AMA supported the passage of the ACA, Affordable Care Act, in 2010, pretending to expand health insurance coverage and improve access to care, when what it really accomplished was further destruction of the healthcare system while enriching those supporting the legislation. Again, an incestuous relationship between government and the AMA. Since then, the AMA advocated for the protection and improvement of the ACA while encouraging the working, tax-paying Americans, you and me, to just pay more taxes. Give us more of your hard-earned money. They say, hey, we're doing this for the coverage of pre-existing conditions and opposing efforts to repel the law without what they deemed a suitable replacement were fierce. I lost my health care. For 4 years, I had no health care. I wasn't in the VA system then. I didn't know I could get VA protection or health care. I didn't know I could get that. I had no idea. Nobody told me, and I didn't think to ask. So they want the taxpayers to pay more money. Well, I was in a situation where because of Obamacare, I lost my health care. Oh, and by the way, critically and terminally ill. I lost my ability to make money ever again. And they canceled me because Obamacare was an impossible do for my otherwise excellent healthcare company. And they said, we got to leave the state. And so they did. And there I was without healthcare. I know. They said pre-existing conditions, man, we got to cover this. There can't be any reason to not have coverage available to you. And I agree. There should be a high-risk pool. There should be something like that. But look, that caused me to lose my health insurance coverage. And you might say, well, why don't you just go on Obamacare? I hear all this talk about, I only pay $19 a month and I don't pay anything for my doctor's appointments. No copays, no nothing. I'm on Obamacare. I'm on the Affordable Care Act. Make sure you support it. Really? Because when I went on their website and I filled everything out, guess how much my cost was for a $10,000 deductible? $3,800 a month. Yeah. Big fat lie. Now, the AMA, the opioid epidemic, that's a big deal. It's ongoing. Fentanyl is a big deal, ongoing. But in 2014, the AMA established the Opioid Task Force to address the growing opioid crisis. Except they were telling physicians to prescribe them. Because the pharmaceutical companies that sold them and the family that sold them, well, they helped the hospitals and helped the physicians. Anyway, anybody see a problem with any of this? Does anybody see a problem where evidence-based prescribing practices, where the alleged evidence is based on it's largely produced by organizations incestuously related to the AMA, the pharmaceutical companies producing the drugs? Anybody see a problem with this? Well, RFK did. And for that, he's being attacked even by his own family. The AMA claims to support enhancing access to treatment for substance abuse disorders and supporting the harm reduction strategies, but they link the provision of treatment to include promotion of ideology, DEI ideology, woke ideology, leftist propaganda. They're actually pushing for the firing of doctors, specialists with 20 years or more experience, for refusing to prescribe hormone blockers or gender suppressing drugs when the physicians are religiously opposed to promoting them because the drugs are dangerous. They haven't been studied for the long-term risk to the patients. They expected to prescribe something they don't have any training on, that there's no suitable data to show, hey, these are safe, or these are the risks. You see a problem here. Remember the jab. You remember all that. Remember who it was that was telling us we're murderers if we don't get the jab. You're going to kill grandma. You got it. That's the same AMA. Supposedly they participated in medical malpractice reform. Very interesting. They would, on the one side, fight against the lawyers and fight for tort reform. That's where, they limit how much you can get by suing healthcare companies or doctors. But guess what ended up happening? They hire those very same law firms, which they claim to fight, to help them keep from getting sued. The AMA has been advocating for caps on non-economic damages to reduce the burden of litigation on healthcare providers and ensure, continued access to healthcare. Again, tort reform is what the term they'll use. But they themselves employ high-power law firms to represent themselves, to fight whoever seeks to expose them where appropriate, including RFK. Gender-affirming care. This is their new big thing. Sure, let's give it to your children. Well, your children can't get it prescribed to them, but if a parent takes them in, says, hey, little Johnny wants to be, Michelle. He really wants to be a girl. Johnny's 4. Or little Bobby, he wants to be Bobette, and he's 7. When I was 4 or 7, I couldn't decide either. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be a fireman, a policeman, a soldier. I couldn't decide. Sometimes I would just do all 3 in one day, but I couldn't really decide. Some days I just couldn't decide. It's a shame. It is a shame. And the parents who are pushing this ideology are just insane. It's child abuse. And the AMA stands behind the doctors, stands behind the ideology. I'm sorry to say, this is a bad deal. They're public health initiatives. The AMA pushes public health, only what they feel is important. Granted, tobacco control, hey, I'm no fan of smoking, but it's your right. I ask you don't smoke around me, because I got enough problems. I can't be breathing in smoke. I grew up in a house where the smoking lamp was always lit, and it was one right after another. Riding in the car, windows up, 2 parents, smoke them, smoke them, smoke them. I'm sitting in the back trying to learn to hold my breath. That's the deal. I'm not a fan. But guess what? Tobacco companies ended up buying Big Ag. Crazy. They push climate change. I don't understand what doctors have to do with climate change, but they're pushing that. They say, hey, look, we got to get rid of fossil fuels. We got to go to renewable energy sources. I'm out of time here. The AMA's leadership over the past several presidents, over the past 12 years, they each bring their perspectives, what they fight for. As of 2024, 2025, Dr. Bruce A. Scott, he serves as the AMA president with Dr. Bobby Mukamala. As I swear to you, that's the name, Mukamala. Dr. Bobby Mukamala. I know, but he's president elect. Sorry, it's a mess. It's a mess, folks. I hope that it's been understandable for you. I'm sorry that I kind of had to rush, but I do apologize for that. It's important. I just felt really powerfully moved to deliver that to you today. I think a lot of people need to hear it, and I hope that it's been beneficial to you, at least educational, because I know most of the people that I talk to that aren't in the profession, they're stunned. They just can't believe it. So, anyway, I'm all finished. Christopher, if you want to come back in and close it out, or if you're going to continue,
I'll probably
on the
continue
podcast.
for a little bit, and I appreciate you and everything that you do.
Anybody
But
have any
brother,
questions? Any at all? By the way, another thing the AMA does is they fight firearms. They're against gun ownership at all. Why? How? Well, we see gun crime, we see injuries to guns in the home, and that's why during questionnaires they would ask children, without the parents present, are there any firearms in the home? Do your parents own guns? They would ask you, are there any guns in the home? Why? I would look at them and go, why are you asking that? What's that got to do with my heart problem? I got an ascending aortic aneurysm. The gun didn't cause that. Why are you asking me this? And I never answer. That's none of your business. It's got nothing to do with why I'm here.
yeah, yeah, I agree. But that was we had a very wicked administration that had a very long run. Just because the last administration had the face of the president. I still think Obam Bam was running the show, and he had 2 terms. From 2008 to however long that was, to really dismantle the American system. So the
Well, he
reason
just had
why,
another term. He just had another term. He
right,
was,
with yeah, he
proxy
had
president.
exactly, so you see our current administration making moves quickly, but you have to understand the catastrophic damage that the previous administration did over the course of 3 administrations. I mean, it was
insane.
devastating. You
Yeah.
had 2 terms under Obam Bam and then a 3rd term with him, running it from his basement. This was literally the enemy running the show, dismantling the system.
Yeah.
So it is, we're at the precipice where drastic action has to take place, or else things are not recoverable.
Well, what's interesting is Obam Bam, as you call him,
Yeah.
former President Obama. He and his wife are heavily invested in all of the things that they are all promoting.
Yeah, of
Somehow or
course.
another, they have ownership now in a textbook company, and they pushed for what did they call it? What was the name of
Yeah, I
the
stay away from saying him by name only because
yeah,
of the way the algorithm works.
yeah.
And speaking of him, he's not married to a female. But
Well,
that's
I don't
that's
know. I
I
don't know.
know. I've
I will tell you that is not a bet I'd be willing to make that he is married to a female.
yeah,
But I have always said that I've really always said, wow. They said she's the most beautiful first lady we've ever had.
yeah,
I got one word for you, Melania.
yeah,
If she isn't the most beautiful first lady I've ever seen,
yeah. She's very elegant.
I think she's one of the most beautiful first ladies anywhere in the world. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, that's just a silly thing. I don't know if Michelle is actually Michael. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff out there that offers to give evidence to the contrary, but I know videos can be doctored, photos can be doctored, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know it. Pardon the pun, firsthand, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet against it. But
Yeah. You're
you know,
absolutely right. Even the things that I've read, that doesn't mean that it's, hasn't been doctored either. But you're
yeah.
right. It would not surprise me. Well, thank you, brother. I
Bet.
appreciate you coming
Hey,
on,
thank
man.
you
I
to
know
the
you get.
audience. Thank you to everybody that comes over to True Word Faith for Life and subscribes and hits the little bell. We're a tiny channel. We're trying to grow, but if you've been blessed, I would love for you to do that. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother.
We'll see you.
Bye. I really enjoy Dr. Shawn. He's truly a blessing while we still have him. I can't believe that he's still kicking. He has been on hospice several times and over the past years. For those of you that don't know, Dr. Shawn has known me since I was a child. He's truly an amazing man. He really is. He truly is. So, what I will say, to reflect on the news, these plane crashes, they are very interesting. But at the same time, Dr. Shawn really makes a good point that it could be just negligence 100% based off of incapable people behind the wheel and behind flight control. But I will say, the plane in Philadelphia, that thing nosedived so fast that it looked like an incoming rocket. Now, I'm not saying that it was, but I say that because that would have to be done intentionally to come out of the air at an angle like that at that speed. Even if a jet of its, or just any plane, even if it lost both engines, it does not dive out of the air like that. Those things can, smoothly lose elevation. And, with the flaps and the motor and, the wing motors, you can keep yourself adrift. You're going to lose elevation, but it's not going to come down out of the air like a rocket unless that is intentional. So that is very, very interesting. And who knows if we will ever get the truth on any of this. Because even the one in DC is very interesting, because we've all seen the playback of that video several times. And there was no evasion whatsoever by each aircraft. That Black Hawk that was involved, we know for a fact it has remote control capability, as they've been experimenting with that for a long time. And, there's a lot of unknowns, and I don't think we will ever know. Melissa, I see you're still going on about Brandon. Look, it's up to you what you feel and what you want to do. I don't get caught up in the specifics as such of the details. I simply pay attention to people by their fruit. 100%. I pay attention to people by their fruit. Love, joy, peace, kindness, self-control, tenderness, stuff of that nature. I know him personally. I like him. I know that he's gotten several things wrong. I'm aware of that, but he's gotten so many things right that I pay attention to what he says. His prediction 3 months in advance for what happened with Trump on July 13th was really, really accurate. That the bullet would graze his ear and blood would go down his face and he'd go down on one knee. I understand that it's easy to predict that there's going to be an attempt on someone's life, but at that specific detail, no. But, I don't get into the back and forth of stuff of that nature, because at the end of the day, what type of fruit is it yielding? If you're talking poorly about one of the messengers of the Lord, how many stumbling blocks are you putting out there in the path of other folks that maybe have been brought to Christ by him? Melissa, yeah, he said it would blow an eardrum. He spoke out of his own emotion. But to me, it's irrelevant. Again, I don't get caught up in those specifics. I take what he says as a serious warning, just because of the amount of times that he has been right. I don't go to the bank with it and put it down as concrete information, just stuff to pay attention to. But I don't find any fruit to yield by being condescending about other servants of the Lord, which is why you really ever hear me. I don't get into those things, even if they're other people that are considered to be, speculating that they're not telling the truth. What fruit does it really yield by us talking about it? Now, if there is someone that beyond the shadow of a doubt, like the Catholic Church, yeah, I'll vocalize that. There's no doubt behind what the current Pope is doing and stuff of that nature. But to speculate based off of your own personal opinion without knowing for a fact 100%, you're casting stumbling blocks and you're producing fruit that does not lift people up. They tear people down. Really at the end of the day, regardless of what Brandon's predictions are, he focuses on the same thing I do, which is he points everybody to Jesus and having a relationship with Christ. And even outside of all of that, if you just look at his fruit, he has beautiful fruit. You can find reasons to condemn anybody. I mean, if you look hard enough with me, you'll find lots of reasons to condemn me. But you will know them by their fruit. Evelyn, Dr. Shawn's channel is in the description. Well, Melissa, that's what we do, is we point people to the Word of God. It's what Brandon does as well. He just says things that he sees in his communications. It doesn't mean you need to listen to it if you don't like him. He points everybody to a relationship with Jesus. I just don't find any point or good fruit that yields from speaking negatively about someone. All right, guys. Well, it was wonderful to be here with you today. Let's see. Today's Sunday, so we have Doug Barrett coming on tonight. I really enjoy Doug. He's really, he has such a good gauge on the spiritual layers of Scripture. And just understand, guys, that be careful who you allow to influence your mind. A lot of people will spend time each and every day rummaging through social media or looking for stuff to watch on YouTube, where really all of your answers are really in the Scripture. And with that daily devotion with Christ, God will reveal to you what you need to know. And then outside of that, look for folks that reflect the fruit of the Spirit so that you can listen to the Lord through His messengers. Because His voice is in His messengers that operate in the true fruit of the Spirit. Because 99% of the stuff that's out there it redirects from the truth. But guys, I love you all, and I will see you later tonight at 9 o'clock. Bye, guys.